He tweeted out just a week ago, I saw this, 46 years now at the Houston Chronicle. So who better, as I've mentioned, to call up and ask what in the world is going on with Deshaun Watson and the Texans than our friend from the Houston Chronicle, John McClain. How are you, John?
I'm doing great, Rich. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. Let's get right into it. The open-ended question, what is going on with Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans right now, John?
A lot of players are unhappy at their disastrous 4-12 season. J.J. Watt's unhappy about it. He's spoken about it. Deshaun Watson told us in his last Zoom call how upset he is with it, and they're both concerned about who the new GM and the new coach will be. And they hired Nick Caserio, who they pursued. This was the third time. And it's met with universal approval around the country in New England, but nobody here wants anybody from New England because it reminds them of the Bill O'Brien era. So Watson, it's being leaked anonymously, sources to the national media, that he's upset because he wasn't consulted. I've never seen a player in my 45 years now covering the NFL who's consulted about a general manager's job, but yes, on the coach. So I would imagine when Nick Caserio hires the coach, that before he does, he'll call Watt and Watson, maybe some other players, but they're the stars and the team leaders, and run it by them.
So my colleague at NFL Network, NFL Media Group, Ian Rappaport, was the one who did report on Thursday night that Cal McNair, who's taken over the franchise from his late father, Bob, did in fact tell Deshaun Watson that they would in fact keep him up to speed, if not have him chat with general manager candidates. And then when Nick Caserio got hired, there was a tweet put out that has since been deleted. I thought it might have had something to do with social justice, but as a matter of fact, it does appear, since it has been deleted, maybe it has to do because it did in fact coincide with the announcement of Nick Caserio being hired as the general manager. Some things never change with 4 dots after it. John, what do you make of that?
He's talking about somebody from New England. You're bringing in another person from New England, and everybody associates with New England with Bill O'Brien. Jack Easterby, the executive vice president of football ops, he's friends with Caserio. He came from New England. People are tired of the Patriot angle.
So you're saying Deshaun is giving people voice with this notion by putting that tweet out there and then deleting it here?
I think he put it out there because he didn't like the Caserio hire because it came from New England. Deshaun Watson told us Monday, I just won a Lombardi trophy, and Caserio has 6 replicas and 6 rings. Yes. So when he talks to Watson, he's going to say, if you want to win a Lombardi trophy, I can show you how. And it starts with a great quarterback, and you are. And first of all, he will never be traded under any circumstances. That's all a bunch of BS. They wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't tell you that if I didn't know it beyond a shadow of a doubt. But as far as that tweet, we all took it as to mean just more of the same, another New England guy.
Let's get into that part of the trading stuff, John. John McClain here on the Rich Eisen Show. Deshaun Watson has a term in his contract that for the next half decade, they need his express approval in writing to have his contract traded to another team. However, he may ask for it, and it doesn't appear that he's very pleased with the way things are headed right now in New England. So let's walk through the possibility that you say isn't going to happen with Houston saying they're going to trade him. But what about the idea that Watson can force things? We've already seen how Houston is front row seat with James Harden and Russell Westbrook. What about Watson pulling a similar maneuver? John? Well,
first of all, Watson's personality, and I've covered him since the day he was drafted, is nothing like James Harden. Watson is a good kid. He doesn't try to tell them who to hire, what players to bring in and what players to trade. In March, let's go back to March when you talked to me. Hopkins had been traded. All these national reports were Watson was going to demand a trade or try out his contract. And I remember one said he'd be playing with the Patriots in another year. And I told you that's all hogwash. And it was, and it is. He's not going anywhere. Is he going to sit out and miss millions and millions of dollars? Of course he's not. He's never met Caserio. He doesn't know who the head coach is going to be, so he already wants out. Give me a break. That's not who Deshaun Watson is.
Let's then just dive into this a little bit more, though, John. And I know you've got that insight, and you know who Watson is, and he definitely doesn't strike me as anybody who gets disillusioned. And it's an excellent point to say, if he wasn't disillusioned by the departure of DeAndre Hopkins, and if things weren't seemingly on the verge of total collapse with Bill O'Brien, why would he sign a contract long-term to stay there? Like, that would have been the moment to force his way out, and he didn't. So why would he do it now? But why is he so disillusioned to tweet something? I mean, that's out of character, you would say, for him, wouldn't you, John?
Because the team was 4-12 and they were pathetic, and he had a great season. Without Hopkins, he had the best season of his career in every statistic, but they had no running game. Their defense was awful. Their run defense was horrific. They couldn't cover anything, and their defense has got to be overhauled. They don't need receivers, tight ends, and he's frustrated just like everybody was, and he put it out there on Twitter, and he told us in a Zoom call the last day what he didn't like and what he was hoping to get, and he ended it with, "I just want a Lombardi trophy." And like I said, Nick Caserio can tell him how to do it, and he'll say, "We had Tom Brady, we got you, we're building from there." And I'll guarantee you, after he talks to Caserio, he's going to feel a whole lot better.
Okay, then there's a few more here I got for you. John McClain on the Rich Eisen Show. What about the idea that Caserio is going to sit down, and he already has? I'm sure he's already been queried on this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten the job if ownership didn't hear the answer that they like to hear. You see, the cupboard is bare on the draft pick front because of Bill O'Brien's maneuverings. The one guy you could trade that could absolutely get it all back right now would be to trade Deshaun Watson. You don't think that eventually, if Watson is disillusioned, isn't returning calls, isn't happy right now, that they could come to some sort of determination, maybe, just maybe, the PR hit will be worth restocking the cupboard and starting from scratch with a new coach and new general manager? John McClain, I'll give you the floor on that.
Absolutely not. No chance in hell they do something like that. You can trust me on, Rich. There's no way Deshaun Watson gets traded. As I said yesterday, I got a better chance of being the next head coach than Watson does of being traded. And this is the second year in a row this has happened, and it didn't happen, and it's not going to happen. They don't have their first and second round picks. They got 8 picks starting in the third round. They got salary cap issues. That'll be up to Nick Caserio to work that out. And they know they're not going to go to win the division. They just won it 4 times in 5 years. This time last year, they're preparing for a playoff victory over Buffalo. Buffalo's now trying to get to the penthouse there. Texans are in the outhouse, but there's no way Watson gets traded, no matter how many people try to figure out a way that he could be.
Okay, so then what's going on? John McClain here from the Houston Chronicle on the Rich Eisen Show. What is going on the coach front right now, best you can tell?
They have interviewed 3 people. They have more lined up, and now that Nick Caserio is the GM, he was agreed to a contract on Tuesday, late Tuesday afternoon. They announced it on Thursday. They didn't want to announce it on Wednesday because of what was going on in Washington, D.C. And then Caserio, I'm sure, has people he wants to interview. He will decide on who the coaches he recommends to the owner, Cal McNair, who will sign off on it.
Why isn't Eric Bieniemy on this list? He seems to be everywhere, and the concept of marrying a Chiefs mindset to Deshaun Watson sounds so good. It sounds like it's a no-brainer. Why hasn't Bieniemy appeared for Houston, John?
Why hasn't Robert Saleh appeared? Robert Saleh was here for 6 years. He's a hot candidate. They have not requested to interview Bieniemy or Saleh. Bieniemy now can't interview, I don't think, till they lose, but Saleh could, and he was my favorite choice. But I have no idea why they're not on the Texans' priority list.
So then what is the best you can tell, I guess, thumbnail of the type of coach that the Texans are identifying right now? What could you tell me?
They want the best possible coach. Doesn't have to be offense, doesn't have to be defense. They want the best guy. Tom Pelissero disclosed that Matt Eberflus, who was on their list, declined an invitation to interview. They're interested in Arthur Smith from the Titans offensive coordinator. They're interested in Brian Daboll, Buffalo's offensive coordinator, and I'm not sure after that.
So I guess then let's just wrap it up this way, John. There's just a lot of weird stuff happening. There's weird stuff happening. The word disillusioned and Deshaun Watson don't seem to like they belong in the same sentence. And I know that they had a dreadful year, and these things do happen in the NFL. And deodorant in the NFL is winning. I understand. That's the best deodorant in the NFL is to win. But he seems to be disillusioned right now. It does appear that the hiring of the general manager irked him. He can eventually get on the same page with all of them. He and Mahomes are close. They don't reach out to Mahomes' offensive coordinator, and it doesn't appear like they're on the same page right now as we're sitting here 1 week into the new year, John. It does look like sometimes you've been around the block five decades worth of time, as we've established almost. There's no fire here. There's no smoke. There's no nothing here. It seems like something is up in Houston. John McClain.
Something is up. They need a new head coach. They just got a new general manager. He's been on the job this is his second day. We're about to interview him for the first time on Zoom, as well as owner Cal McNair. Will ask them all these questions. Watson, Watt, everybody is disillusioned because they had a disastrous season. And I'll point something out in the interest of fairness.
Sure.
The teams that beat them, Rich, finished 57 games over 500. 57 games over 500, 5 of them in first place. And they lost 8 one-score games in the division. They got beat by the Titans on the last play of both games. And against the Colts, they reached the Colts 2-yard line in the last minute of both games and fumbled. So they could have won those games, but they lost them. And so that's why they're disillusioned, because they came close a lot. They had turnovers. Their defense was terrible. The running game was terrible. They couldn't stop a clock. And Nick Caserio and the new coach got a lot of work to do. And I'll guarantee you that if you call me in a couple of months, Deshaun Watson will be happy, and they'll all be working toward the common goal of trying to get him that elusive Lombardi trophy.
What about J.J. Watt 2 months from now?
He's got 1 year left on his contract at $17 million. We asked him if he wants to be back. He said there are so many unknowns. Now, if Nick Caserio wants to do it the way the Patriots do it, they don't give big contracts to veterans. They get rid of guys before they get to the end of their career. Watt's going to be 32. He had a good season. It doesn't show up in sacks, but it did other ways. He's their best defensive player. He's worth more to them than another team. If he came out and said, I'd like to go to Pittsburgh to play with my brothers, people here would understand. If he said, I'd like to go back to Wisconsin and play for the favorite team growing up, they would understand. But he would have to ask for a trade, and he might do it, because he said he wants to see what happens with the head coach and the general manager and the defensive coordinator and the system and all that. That was what he said, and that's not what Watson has said, but I'm pretty sure he feels that way.
And if there could be a do-over for the Texans, what would it be? Would it be the hiring at all of Easterby? 'Cause, I mean, there's been some interesting stories about certainly in terms of a front office individual, you don't usually see deep dive features on somebody. Would it be allowing O'Brien to wear both hats? Wave a wand for me and change something, John.
Bill O'Brien was the GM for 2 years. He didn't have the title the first year, and Jack Easterby did what he didn't want to do, and he had to sign off on everything because he was the last word other than owner Cal McNair. I'll tell you, do-over, 24-0 in the second quarter at Arrowhead Stadium in the divisional round of the playoff, and Bill O'Brien goes for a fake punt on his 31. Didn't work. Easy touchdown. The comeback was on. If he hadn't done that and they just punted, maybe the Chiefs would have won anyway, but the Texans just choked that lead because they did things they didn't do in regular season. That's where they need the do-over, to go back to the second quarter at Arrowhead Stadium.
All right, and I keep on adding one after another, but this is like a big postmortem. How in the last one for you, and I promise I'll let you go on your Friday. Because I've asked this
I
over.
got all the time you need, Rich.
I love it, John McClain, because here it is. I ask this every single time I see this guy reach out his arms and either grab a Hail Mary on top 3 other defenders or his 90-foot-long catch radius, his vice-like hands, his toe-tapping toes, all of it. How in the hell did the Texans give away DeAndre Hopkins for only a second-round pick? How the hell did that happen, John McClain?
They got running back David Johnson,
Sure.
a second-round pick they used on defensive end Ross Blacklock, and they got a 4th-round pick this year. And Bill O'Brien couldn't get a number 1 because teams didn't want to redo his contract with 3 years left. Arizona did. They made him happy. Hop played great, as he always does. Never misses a game because of an injury. People panic all the time because he's not practicing. He's as tough a player as I've ever seen. And people here are still mad about it, even though Watson had a great season. The receivers played well. They led the league in a bunch of passing statistics. So that was the thing that really turned fans against O'Brien after they blew that 24-0 playoff lead at Kansas City.
Because it makes no sense, John. And again, I don't like to, even merely suggest somebody who's been around the NFL as long as you have covering it that you might be missing something. There wasn't a single team that was willing to redo this man's contract with 3 years left on it for a 27-year-old perennial Pro Bowler, future Hall of Fame possibility. Nobody was willing to cough up a 1 for that. All? Really?
If somebody were willing, would he have done it? Did he say, let me go out here and get the worst deal I could possibly get? If he could have gotten a 1, he would have gotten a 1.
I hear you, John.
Boggles the mind, doesn't it?
It sure does. But again, you've covered people in that town who's studied playbooks by the light of a jukebox, right, John?
I sure have. Snake Stabler, one of my all-time favorites.
Is he? Is he in your 46 years on the job?
He was fun to cover. He was fun to interview, and he was fun to wonder what he was doing at night.
John, appreciate the time. Really, and congrats on that time, and I can't wait to hear what's coming from your fingers, your mind, your typewriter, your computer, whatever you're doing down there. And I really appreciate it. And certainly when you hit send on your tweets, I love @McClain _on_NFL. Thanks for the time, John.
Hey, Rich, thanks very much. It's hard to tweet from my typewriter, I can tell you that.
Okay, very good. You take care, John.
Stay safe.
You got it. That's John McClain here on The Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.